Hello and welcome to this series of videos on creating an idea scripting dialog. In this particular video, I'm going to show you how to create a help dialog that you can access from the main dialog. And this is easy enough to do. We're just going to add in another button. We'll just do top 180. We're going to call it button help. And I'm just going to call this push button help. Oops. So whenever we do this, we'll be calling another dialog. Now I have to go in and create this dialog. And how I'll do that is easy enough. I'll just go to dialogs and I could go new dialog or under, I can't remember, insert, you can do new dialog also. So I'm going to change this. I'm just going to change this name to help dialog. I'll give it a name. Let's call it help dialog. And we'll give it access to a function. So if I want to go in and make any changes to that, I could. And I'll just call this help menu function. So if we want to do any changes to it when it opens up or anything like that, we can go do it here. This is going to be easy enough, this dialog here. All it's going to have is static text. And I'll just make this fairly large, and then I'll just have an OK button. We'll grab the OK button, and that's it. And I'm just going to go in and put some default text right now in here. So this is sort of the standard text you use for whenever you're just using for a demo. But I'm actually going to go in and change this once we open it up. So now I want to go back here and to access it. So to access it, I need to create a couple of more variables. One, I want to create a variable, let's call it DLG help as the help dialog. So this variable is now associated with this help dialog. And again, much like up here, I need the button integer. I'm going to do the same thing here. It's needed to hold the information that comes back, but we're not actually going to do anything with it. Now, what we want to do is like anything else is whenever we click a button, so whenever we click this button here, PBB help, and we'll go in and case PBB help. So whenever we select that button, what we're going to do is we're just going to call button equals dialog DLG-HLP. I'll just save that, and let's go see what this looks like. Now I get the help button, I click on this, and it goes in and gives me this little description. One problem we have, or actually I'll come back to that in a sec, I'll just hit cancel. Go back to the code. So remember I created a function called help menu function. So if I want to go in and change that text when this opens up, I can do that. So I'm going to create another function. And I'm just going to go up here and steal these variables because it's the same thing, because all dialogues use these variables. And then what I want to do is I don't need all that big select text in there because I'm just going to have a message in there. So it's a really simple dialogue. But I could create a lot more sophisticated dialogues. I could create like subsequent dialogues where I can go grab files, folders, different things like that. So you can make them fairly complex. So I'm just going to create a variable, a string, a message variable, and then I'm just going to save a message equals to, this is the help. And I'm going to add on something here that you may or may not have seen, character 13 and character 10. So what this is it creates a carriage return. So it creates a hard return within there. So now this is the help. Would be one paragraph, and then I'd skip down to the next paragraph. And since I want to keep on adding to this message, I'll go message is equal to message, add in, and then I'll just add in, well actually I'm just going to copy. I'll just copy this over to make it a bit quicker. So here you can add in any help in this section. So here I'm having two returns, so the two spaces, and then I'm just saying how to do it. And finally, I just want to do dialog text. Remember that adds on, that changes the dialog. So if I go here And I click on here, I got the text one, so I'll use this as the ID. And then I'll enter the message. So I'll save that. Let's go try this out. Go help, and there we have it. Now there's one problem still with this, is if I hit help, it creates another help, and help, and help, and help. So we don't want to do that. We only want one help open at a time. So that's our next step. Because if not, it can get fairly, it can get fairly complicated quickly, and if you hit help too often, you may encounter errors. So how I do that to make sure that I only have one open is I'm going to go back up here and button dialog, and I'm going to create an if statement. Create another variable and an if statement. And how I do that is, and I'll show you, I'm just going to write out the code. So I'm just going to say if boolean help dialog open, then, sorry, I don't want if, I want then. So if it's not open, if it's not true, then you can display it. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this variable. So once it's open, I'm going to set this to true. And then I'm going to set this to false. And if. So what happens here is that with this dialog, this Boolean dialog, and I'm going to define it in a second. So if it's not true, so if it's not been set to true, then I go in and I set it true, and then I go and show the dialog. The thing is, when I show the dialog, when this dialog is finally closed, when I hit a OK, cancel, or whatever button it may be, what actually happens is it comes to this line here, the next line. So I'll set it as false. So when I close this dialog, it resets it as false, and then I can open it again. Now, the last thing I have to do here is I have to define that variable. So I don't define that variable, it's going to give me an error. And I'm just going to grab the name of the variable, and because it's not within this dialog, I have to define it as a global variable. The reason I have to define it as a global variable is that these variables here, these variables here are only within this function. The thing is as soon as I open up another dialog, I'm going to a different function. And the only way that these functions can see each other is if I transfer the variable or set up as a global variable. And setting up as a global variable I found is to be the easiest way of doing it. So once it's done, I'm going to run this. Now if I go help, now if I hit help again, nothing. So I only can have one open at a time. I click on OK. Same thing here. Now I can open it again, close, open, and so on, but I can only have one open at a time. So that's it for this video, adding on an additional dialog. So I'll see you in the next one where we're going to do the calendar. Thanks.